Welcome to the Box of Textures. Today's exercise, we have set up a 960 sequencer, and it has 8 steps. Here's the sequencer. Just using the synth voice because I was too lazy to put one together, but then after I got over my laziness, I of course had to add delay and space and things like that. So, but it's a basic sound. Basically, whoops, where are we? Here we go. Square wave from VCO1 and the default square wave from VCO2, and a little bit of LFO changing the pulse widths. So, you know, a good solid basic sound fit for use in a sequencer. But that is not the point of today's exercise. Today, what we're doing is we are making random length sequences. So the first note is higher, and then the other 7 notes are lower, just so you can tell them apart when step one comes around. And basically, this row of jacks on the bottom, the trick is you have 8 steps in your sequence, and you have the input on step 1. So if I take the output of step 5 and connect that to the input of step 1, it'll play through 1, 2, 3, and 4, and it'll see, bang, step 5 is where the output jack is connected back around, and then it goes back to step 1. So whatever output jack you have connected to step 1 is where the cycle starts over again. So if I connect jack 4's or step 4's output to step 1's input, then that is how many steps I'll get. Well, I'll get 3 steps, it'll see step 4, and then it'll go back around to step 1. There's no reason why you would have to have the cycle start at step 1. You could have it start at step 2. So wherever we're not even going to get there today, because that's a whole different complication, and I'm thinking about that too. Anyway, so that's how the basic 960 sequential controller works. I do have a 962 row 1. Well, I take it back. We're hearing row 2 because you can see that's lit up. Row 2 is the high note, and then the 8 lower notes. If we go to row 1, that is a series of actual notes. And that was how I did the sequence originally, but then I decided to go to this one just so it would be clearer when the sequence started over again. So that's all that the sequential switch is doing. It's not actually doing anything in the patch. It's just giving me a handy way to switch between the 2 rows for the notes I'm getting. That's the basics, and that's how a sequencer works, or the 960. So here's the executive summary of what we're doing. The sequencer is playing, and one extra added feature I did is I took an output from step 1, so every time we hit step 1, that sends a pulse to the clock in of the random task. So what we're doing is every time the sequencer starts over, it says, boom, random task, pick a no voltage. And that picks one of the 6 voltages, and whatever voltage it randomly picks gets sent to the 1x8 switch. The 1x8 switch says, okay, how much voltage is this? And it decides which of these 6 outputs it is going to use. In this case, step 2 is lit up because we still haven't moved it. And it takes the 5 volts that we're putting into the switch and sends it to one of these switching input jacks on this switching module. And what that does, that sends the voltage from whichever one of these steps has been chosen by the random task, goes through the bus, sends that to the sequencer, and the sequencer goes, okay, I've gotten a pulse, I'm going to restart at step number 1. So that's what we're doing. The random task, every time the sequencer hits step 1, it picks essentially a new step that is sent to this switch, which sends a voltage 5 volts out to whichever step, whichever switch is activated, whichever circuit is activated. Let me try to be accurate. And that goes through the bus, and that resets the sequencer back to step 1, and it all starts over again. So you can see step 2, step 7. So I really should have labeled these. The first circuit goes to, and actually the circuits are labeled from bottom to top, but I never use it that way. I don't know why. So this first circuit, you can see, goes to step 4. So whenever this light is lit, because this switch is closed, we get 3 steps. Then if this is on, we get 4 steps, 5, 6, 7. The last one has no input, so that just lets the sequencer play all 8 steps. So we don't need a voltage because that's just the default state of playing all 8 steps. And you don't need a reset. So that's how this works, and I want to mention OZ Hall's 960 sequencer demo that I saw the other day on Matrix Synth, where I see all the things. What he did is this is in hardware, in Euro, he set up a 960 type module, and he basically was explaining or demonstrating the jacks on the bottom. And what he did is he set up a manual switching module that he would either turn a knob or hit a button. I'm not 100% sure because I couldn't quite see it. And that would send the voltage or not, and that would give you varying sequence lengths. And as soon as I read that in the description, without even having listened to it or played the video yet, I was just reading the description, that just set off bells in my head. And I just stopped for a minute, and I could see this entire patch just, I could envision it, and how you could use a random switching set of modules, in a sense, to just randomly, without having to manually switch it, you could use these jacks and have the sequencer, have the synth randomly change sequence lengths all on its own. In a sense, there's no control over it, whereas what OZ Hall did, you could manually hit the switch or not hit the switch. This is totally hands-off random and picks any of 5 different sequence lengths, and you could just set it going and walk away. And as soon as I read that in the description, I could just see this entire patch, and it took me a while to actually get it working. And one thing I regret is I used all gray patch cords, and well, I realized that and I said, wait a second, I should start using colors, but I didn't actually do that except for the one. So I usually color code things so they make sense, and I neglected to do that for this one, so my deepest of apologies. Anyway, I have talked this thing over several times worth, I think, so I'm just going to let it play. But the point is, I was just not inspired by OZ Hall's video, but it was just the clouds parted and it was shown to me how this could be done. So go take a look at that video, and this is the technique that he used, a little bit expanded and a lot more randomized. So I hope this has been informative. As always, please like the video if you do like the video. Feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I have a Patreon. I would be thrilled if people signed up to that. That supports this nasty habit I have of buying computers and iPads and software and synthesizers and doing all of these videos. And I appreciate my Patreon subscribers and would love for you to join in. So that is the random length sequence, or sequence length randomizer as they call the patch. And thank you for listening.